Okay, so I hope the sound quality is okay. Just a quick disclaimer, if it isn't wonderful, it's because I've recorded several videos in succession, and sometimes that may be has some impact on the volume, but I'll try and speak clearly and not make this one too long. I just want to speak briefly about the demonstrations today across the world against Trump, ostensibly against Trump. Some of the organizers have been careful not to say him by name, but it is pretty obvious with some of the tactics that are being used. For example, in Berlin and in other cities, protesters were wearing pink kitten hats. The notion is reclaiming the word pussy from the crude context Trump used it 12 years ago. Um, so it's just a few things I want to say about this. Firstly, this is no small event. There's demonstrations in 60 countries. Some of them are very large. I believe in Boston, 250,000 people may have gathered. There is a major demonstration outside the American embassy in London. Ironically, just sticking on the point of embassies, apparently in the Russian city of Tula, because Russia obviously has somewhat welcomed Trump's election, um, a local confectioner has produced sweets with Trump's image on them for the improvement and a hope of sweetening up relations. And apparently, American diplomats have been given a 10% discount in the city, so that's interesting. Um, but anyway, these demonstrations, thousands and thousands of people have taken part, mostly women, but some men as well, um, and from a variety of backgrounds. Initially, I thought it was just Western countries, but apparently there's been demonstrations in Kenya and elsewhere. Um, Obviously, there's an underlying feminist initiative with all of this, but there's other issues as well, LGBT issues. In the case of Kenya, in the Nairobi protest, it was calling attention to the rights of domestic workers. But it seems to me that this has kind of been used as a way to attack Trump. A lot of the people in the American demos were saying they don't recognize him as their president. Now, the reporters, even from CNN, were saying he is the president. That's just the, the case. He is the president. Um, Senator Cory Booker was at one of the demos, and he was asked what he thought of it. And he said, "I acknowledge he's the president, but we're going to spend the next 4 years, focusing on tackling the sort of things that Trump plans to overhaul, like the Affordable Care Act and so on." He was also pressed on his own presidential ambitions, and he got a little bit annoyed by that, which I can understand. And then the anchor was like, "Oh, I tried to press him on it, but this is a good example of the media playing politics when there's another story going on. So if you're reporting on the demos, then report on the demos. Don't report on the fact that a well-known senator could be a name in 2020. It's totally irrelevant to right now. I think it's just this whole sort of get them on the spot and see if they'll run for president thing is nonsense. Another high profile politician who took part was the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and he sang along to the song We Are Family with some of the demonstrators in London. Okay, so here's my take on it. I was very vocal in my condemnation of the violent protests yesterday. There's a big contrast with these demonstrations in that they're overwhelmingly peaceful, from what I've seen, and that's very good. And I absolutely 100% support the right of these women to protest. However, I do somewhat question why they're protesting against Trump in light of some of the other things that go on in this world. It is curious that they're sort of amalgamating this notion of Islamophobia with feminism. That's a very strange combination because some of the worst treatment of women in the world doesn't come from the hands or mouth of Donald Trump, but from the barbaric way they're treated in certain Islamic countries. And it does vary from country to country, but in some jurisdictions, if a woman is raped, she is accused of adultery and could face the death penalty. There are serious women's rights issues going on all over the world, and Islam's track record is appalling. And the thing is, there are really passionate Muslim women who will defend this and make excuses for it and deny it. But for example, in one of the American demos, I think it was in Washington, D.C., there were a group of people wearing hijabs for solidarity for American Muslims. That's problematic in two regards. Firstly, it insinuates that all Muslim American women wear the hijab, which is not true. And secondly, and I've made this argument before in general issues about the hijab, it implies that it is always about free choice. It's not. The fact of the matter is, in parts of Afghanistan, women have no choice. So I think it's almost mawkish to glamorize this item of clothing like it's some wonderful thing when there's parts of the world where women really don't have a choice. So, with the greatest respect to Muslim women who might be watching this video, I would say, okay, wonderful, that's your choice. But do you therefore support the right of Muslim women who choose not to wear it? Because the fact of the matter is, in some conservative Islamic societies, if a woman chooses not to wear the hijab, she is seen as un-Islamic, and she will get all sorts of abuse, not just from men, but from women as well. So I think there's an inconsistency in this argument, um, and that for me is problematic. So to be honest, I honestly think that Trump is an easy target. In the end of the day, people can use hyperbole and say he's a dictator and all the rest of it, but these protests have been going ahead, and I haven't seen Trump send in the troops yet. Now, if they show the same passion and the same sort of numbers in criticizing Islamic theocracies, then I might think, well, okay, these are consistent. I just think that sometimes it's a lot easier to bash a white Western man on misogyny than it is Islamic states. And okay, this white Western man happens to be a very powerful white Western man, but I don't know. I support the right to do it, and I actually do understand some of the frustration that lies behind these protests. So I'm not saying, oh, they're all idiots and it's all waste of time or something like that. I really do understand some of the frustration because Trump has said some outrageous things. In terms of the LGBT protesters, I'm assuming their issues with Pence more than Trump. Actually, Trump has been very vocal in condemning the way Daesh has treated gay men. Um, but again, it seems a bizarre thing to me, and I've seen this in the UK as well, and it is a classic example of regressive left, where people get up and I've seen a gay campaigner in the UK get up and vilify Nigel Farage as an Islamophobe. Now, the irony about this is, as a gay man, he would be the very first to be thrown off a building in ISIS held areas. So, this notion of equating condemning Islamism with Islamophobia is utterly absurd, and there are far too many people on the left immediately jump into that frame of mind that if you criticize Islamic terrorists, that somehow equates to hating all Muslims. It's absurd, and I think the left are morally, some on the left are morally cowardly when it comes to this because they don't really believe in human rights. If they did, they would be on the forefront of condemning the likes of Daesh. Now, in terms of Mr. Trump and misogyny, well, he does have a very troubling track record. There's no question about that. And it isn't just that Access Hollywood tape. He did apologize for that, and it's 12 years ago. Although it was a disgraceful thing to say, I think it also refers to more recent incidents. So I do understand the frustration and concerns behind these protests. All I would say is, I hope these people would show the same conviction and passion against Islamist attitudes to women. And to those Muslim women who say, oh, but Islam treats women perfectly, you're lying. You're lying. Because the fact of the matter is, in parts of the world under Islamic jurisdictions, women are treated appallingly. So I'm getting a little bit tired of Western Muslim women promoting this lie that it's all bliss, because it isn't. It just isn't. I think they're doing their sisters a great disservice, in fact, by pretending that everything is okay, when that just is not true. So if you're a Muslim woman living in Canada or the US or Britain, You have far more rights than a Muslim woman living in certain parts of Somalia or Yemen or indeed Pakistan. Let's just be real here. Let's just be honest. So I support the right to these protests. I just wonder, would it be the same response if if the protests were about Saudi Arabia or other countries that, I mean, where is the solidarity for Saudi women drivers? Why are we not seeing thousands of women in cities across the world, publicly marching for the right for Saudi women to drive? I think these are legitimate questions. So, yeah, it's legitimate to protest against Trump. It's a democratic right, but that's all I'm questioning. Why the focus is on him when there are so many other things going on in the world that are much worse. Incidentally, the sexual assault allegations are at present still allegations. They haven't been proven to be true. Having said that, I don't know if the president's immune from a court of law or not, so that could be an issue. But that's just my thoughts. Thanks for watching.